I'm glad that you're here at this gala. Like I was telling them, you can't have a gala without the gay and then the comedy.
Exactly.
You just
That's
can't.
right. Between us, we are the gala.
This country is ours. It doesn't belong to whoever is in the White House. It belongs to you. It belongs to us. It belongs to we, the people. Thank you, Governor.
People who hate what Trump is proposing. Yes.
There's a poll out today that has your approval ratings lower than any other congressional leader at 17%. Are you concerned that you may be a liability for your party?
Polls come and go. Our party is united. We're on our front foot. We're stepping forward, going after Trump, and having real success. Yes.
Thank you very much. On border security.
Boy. I got some bad news for the Democrats. Yes, more bad news for the party that is currently in shambles. Okay. As you guys saw at the beginning of this video, Chuck Schumer spent a lot of time talking about the fake polls with Trump's approval rating, right? But he forgot that the Democrat Party has a lower approval rating than President Trump, even with the fake polls making President Trump's approval look lower than it really is, right? But what we do know is that the polls showing that the Democrat Party approval rating is almost sub 20% at this point, right? Especially the leadership, people like him. Those polls are more likely to be closer to reality than the numbers that the media puts out there about Trump, right? I mean, I think the media tends to overestimate the Democrat Party and their support. When confronted with that reality, okay, Chuck Schumer decides, hey, polls come and go, right? Polls come and go. Who cares, right? Again, it's just funny how that works because Democrats are taking a premature victory lap over President Trump, right? That is what they are trying to do, okay? Over these fake polls, they're basically coming out here and they think that that means America wants them. And that is certainly not the case, okay? And that's what I want to talk about because you have some Democrats like Kamala Harris now coming out to criticize President Trump, okay? And Kamala Harris has taken a I told you so approach to her criticisms of President Trump, basically trying to make it seem like America would be better off if she was the president of the United States.
I know people are discouraging rhetoric like I told you so. But you guys, she did tell us so. You spent over 107 days traveling the country warning us about Project 2025 and the effects that it would have not only on the cost of living, but goods and what it would actually define as our citizenship. Given that he has been detailed the 900 pages of his playbook, what can we do as Americans to prepare for the ongoing attacks or at least to mitigate them?
Well, first, let's speak truth about the fact that, as you said, Kenny, this playbook is a playbook that has been in the works for decades. So don't be duped into thinking, oh, this is just something that is the fancy of some wild thoughts that happened overnight. There have been a lot of people planning for the moment that someone would be in the White House to implement what we are witnessing. Mm-hmm. And it may feel chaotic, and certainly the tariffs are, but be very clear. This is mostly not chaos we are witnessing. Mm. It is high velocity implementation of a longstanding plan.
Mm. The American dream has for decades been slipping further out of reach for so many. And that the American people deserve leaders who make their lives better and make our country stronger. But sadly, we have seen quite the opposite over these past few months. In fact, please allow me, friends, to digress for a moment. Okay. It's kind of dark in here, but I'm asking for a show of hands. Who saw that video from a couple of weeks ago, the one of the elephants at the San Diego Zoo during the earthquake? Google it if you've not seen it. So that scene has been on my mind. Everybody's asking me, what you've been thinking about these days? Well, so in the video, for those who haven't seen it, here those elephants were. And as soon as they felt the earth shaking beneath their feet, they got in a circle and stood next to each other to protect the most vulnerable. Think about it. What a powerful metaphor.
Yeah, so that is Kamala Harris awkwardly trying to attack President Trump with metaphors that nobody understands except her, because I didn't understand what she was saying, right? I don't know what she was getting at there. But apparently that was an attack against President Trump, okay? And the White House has responded to Kamala and her attacks that she gave at this gala by basically saying, keep attacking us, right? We welcome you to continue to talk, continue to speak, because the more that you speak, the more that you talk, the more that you do these speeches, the better it is for us.
The only thing Americans want to hear from Kamala Harris is an apology for joining Joe Biden, and remember, she was the border czar, joining Joe Biden in aiding and abetting the invasion of our country. And we're never going to stop talking about this, because what they did to this country is unforgivable. It is an eternal stain on the Democrat Party. Every day we read another story. Every day we arrest another alien they let into this country who raped a child, who beat a woman within an inch of her life, who murdered a mom, who murdered a dad, who trafficked drugs into this country, who trafficked fentanyl into this country, who are responsible for dead and slaughtered Americans. And I don't know what's broken in the Washington press corps, that none of that moves them emotionally. The only thing that gets them exercised is, do we need to have more trials for terrorist supporters? We need to have more trials for gangbangers. We need to have more trials for illegal alien invaders, even though Congress and the Constitution clearly say that you can expel invaders and illegal aliens quickly, efficiently, and properly. This president has literally saved America, and I could not be prouder. I could not be prouder, as I know Caroline feels the same way, to come every single day to this building where we have a leader sitting in that office whose first, last, and every thought is the safety, prosperity, security, and sovereignty of the citizens. That's an important word, people. Citizens of this republic.
Your time. Thank you, everyone. And just to add on the Kamala Harris point, I think I speak for everyone at the White House. We encourage Kamala Harris to continue going out and do speaking engagements. You'll hear from the president at 11 o'clock. See you guys later.
Wow, savage. I don't know about you guys, but I love the Trump administration 2.0. It's way better than the Trump administration 1.0. I'm going to keep it all the way 100 with you, because President Trump, the Trump administration 1.0, they were establishment, right? They weren't really fighters, right? These are all fighters, okay, for the most part. Now, again, we all got some criticism for some members of the cabinet, and it's deserved, right? It's very much deserved, okay? However, I do think that Stephen Miller is one of my favorite Trump cabinet members, because you can tell that he really believes the things that he says, right? And he's very passionate about illegal immigration, okay? And if you believe that man is not doing everything in his power to deport as many illegals as possible from this country, then you're just not very smart, right? Again, a lot of people are criticizing Trump for not deporting enough illegals, not realizing that quite literally we have the whole establishment, okay? The judges, the states, the blue states where most of the illegals are, they are against Trump, right? They're trying to stop him from deporting illegals, okay? So it's hard. It's really hard. But this dude has sealed the border shut. Okay, we have the military at the border. We got the mass deportations. I mean, they have done an amazing job on this illegal immigrant issue, and I just don't think they're getting enough credit for it, to be honest with you. I really don't. And we did not get this in the Trump administration 1.0, right? We didn't even come close to this. We had Republicans actively fighting Trump on building the wall, right? Now all the Republicans are lined up behind Trump. Trump dragged the GOP to the right on this issue, right? Because, you know, a lot of these Republicans, they love the illegals, right? They love the cheap labor, okay? The big business Republicans. So, you know, I'm just saying that President Trump has accomplished things that the American people know Kamala Harris would not have done, that Democrats would not have done. They told us you needed legislation to close the border. In the legislation, they were basically allowing illegals into the country. They were normalizing illegal immigration. That's what they were doing in that piece of legislation. Trump proved that you don't need legislation, okay, at least to do the executive orders, that is, right, to seal the border, for the president to seal the border. You might need legislation to make it permanent. Yeah, you definitely need legislation to make it permanent, and the GOP needs to pass that legislation so that Democrats just can't undo everything if they happen to win again, right? If they ever win again. But Trump proved that it can be done just via executive action. If you treat the border like an emergency, right? If you say this is an emergency and you use your emergency powers that you have as president and you have the right people in place, aka Pete Hegseth, putting the military on the border, right? That's willing to do what the president wants, then yeah, it's totally possible. It's totally possible. So this is why I'm not surprised that CNN is dropping this poll, which basically is extremely damning to people on the left, right? These people that are running around saying, I told you so, basically showing that the American people, despite the propaganda against President Trump, 100% negative news that they cover, right, when it comes to Trump, people still think what President Trump is doing right now is better than what we would have got from Kamala Harris. In which, again, this basically can also be framed as, well, if the election were held today, who would win? And in this poll strongly suggests that President Trump will win if the election was held today. So Kamala Harris running around and saying, I told you so, just looks really silly.
Who would be doing a better job as president? Guess who comes out on top? Within the margin of error, but comes out on top. This looks a lot like the election result, right? Trump 45%, 2 points ahead of Harris at 43%. 12% say they'd be doing about the same. But this is the key nugget here. It's not just about regretting that vote. It's literally saying who would be doing the better job right now. And Trump continues to score a higher percentage of the vote than Kamala Harris. This looks a heck of a lot like the election result. We have just seen this in poll after poll after poll. Despite the fact that Trump's favorable ratings aren't too hot to trot, when he's matched up against who he was matched up in 2024, he still, across the polls, scores a higher percentage than Kamala Harris does.
Even if they don't know exactly what she would have done, they still went for Donald Trump. Okay, what about when he's matched up against congressional Democrats, who we know have had some pretty rough numbers?
Yeah, they have had some pretty rough numbers. So Kamala Harris obviously doesn't hold elected office right now, but Democrats in Congress sure do. So who do you trust more on the U.S. main problems, the main problems in the United States? Well, what do we have here? It's the same exact picture, folks. It's the same exact picture. When you match Donald Trump against his actual competition, Donald Trump comes out ahead. Look at this, 40% to congressional Democrats, 32%. Going to make a big circle here. But the bottom line is, when you look at Donald Trump in a vacuum, it's one thing. But when you actually match him up against folks in the real world, all of a sudden his numbers look considerably better. And when you match him up against his main competition at this point, Democrats in Congress, he is more trusted on the main problems facing the United States right now. In fact, it's not even close. It's an 8-point advantage, which in this politics, well, that's a wide ocean.
It's huge, and maybe tells the Democrats that their messaging is not working at this point in time. All right, speaking of the big issues, which party is better trusted when it comes to things like the economy and immigration still?
Right. Okay. So we kind of talk about it a little bit up here when we match up Donald Trump against the Democrats in Congress. But what about the parties up against each other, right? Donald Trump has not seen those favorable polls when it comes to the economy, when it comes to immigration. But look here, which party has a better plan? And this is the margin among registered voters. Look at this on immigration. The GOP crushes the Democrats. Look at that. That's a 19-point edge. My goodness gracious. You rarely ever see leads like that in politics these days. How about on the economy, where Donald Trump's numbers have been struggling a little bit? But even there, Republicans hold a 9-point lead. If Democrats think that at this particular point, just because Donald Trump is unpopular, that they're going to run away with it like a Heisman Trophy winner, that is not necessarily the case. These numbers should be a major wake-up call for Democrats. Despite Donald Trump's unpopularity in the polls, when you actually go up against him and you put Democrats' names against him, when you put Republicans as a whole up against him, Republicans and Donald Trump do considerably better. And that is why Democrats, in fact, cannot count their chickens just yet, because those eggs have not cracked at this particular moment.
I think you said the pivotal thing, the important thing, which is Democrats are not going to be running away with anything. They have to start thinking about what their message is going forward.
That's exactly right, because at this point, the Democratic message ain't selling a thing.
All right.
Yeah, because the Democrat message is F Trump. That's it. That's all they got. And see, I love this segment from CNN because it basically backs up everything that I've been telling you guys about why people should not be panicking about the midterms. People forget Democrats suck, okay? Democrats are really, really, really despised, okay? There's a reason why you don't see people walking around with Democrat Party paraphernalia, right? Nobody wants to be associated with the Democrat Party, okay? There is not many things in this country that are more unpopular than the Democrat Party. Probably the liberal media, right? But the liberal media and the Democrat Party, the most unpopular entities in this country, okay? Maybe the whole world. So with that being said, those numbers basically backs up this idea that despite the propaganda against President Trump, the voters still believe that Trump is a better option than the Democrat Party. Now, the reason why voters think that is because Democrats aren't offering anything except Trump derangement, right? And wokeness. This is what Democrats are doing. It's Trump derangement and more woke, right? Let's be further left on social issues, right? Like immigration, trans issues, race issues.
So you're about to speak at the Emerge Gala, right? Which
Yes.
focuses on recruiting Democratic women to run for office.
That's
I think
right.
it's super important that we have more women elected leaders. But what I think is more important is to make sure the Black women are uplifted.
That's
What
right.
are you going to do since you're finally clocking back in to
Uh-huh.
uplift Black women?
Well, first of all, I want to remind all women and Black women in particular that there is still so much ground to be broken. And know that you have support. Know that, again, that people will applaud you for taking that step to think about running for office and to run for office. Know that I applaud you, as do so many, for you to have the ambition to know that you've got something at stake and you're prepared to lead because you have a voice and an opinion and a stake in the decisions that will be made through that office, whatever the office is that you seek.
That's what they got. That's what Democrats are running on, guys. That's what they're going to run on. Trump derangement and that. What you just saw, right? That is the Democrat Party in a nutshell. So, yeah, this is why when you pair up the Democrat Party against Trump, they lose, right? Despite the propaganda against Trump, bringing down his numbers, right? Which his numbers really aren't low. The liberal media is rigging the polls against him. So the reality is that he's doing better. He's probably doing better than the CNN polling suggests, right? And this is why I said that Democrats trying to put Trump on the ballot in the midterms, right, by trying to impeach him is a really, really, really bad idea for them. It is a really stupid idea, but the stupidity in the Democrat Party never ends because the stupidest among them are embracing this idea. Take a look.
We should never take impeachment off the table. We should never take where we see law breaking. We should never take accountability off the table.
But should you pursue it? Should you pursue impeachment?
Should it be pursued?
Yeah.
I mean, I believe that there is plenty of law breaking that should be examined and looked at. But the question is what articles, what would be filed, etc. But I voted for and supported impeachment in Trump's first term because he illegally withheld funds from Ukraine and he also incited a terrorist attack right here, right behind us. And so, yeah, I think that those are things that I felt that those were grounds for impeachment. And I think it was also grounds for removal. But once again, I also don't think that impeachment is something that is used explicitly as a political attack. There must be grounds, and there very well may be, especially in the next year or two.
I am telling you guys, mark my words. Mark my words. If the economy gets better, which I believe that it will, okay, we have good reasons, great reasons to believe that it will. I mean, just look at the market today. It is almost made up for some of the volatility we've seen from the tariffs, okay? If the economy gets better, if we get a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia, in which we just signed a minerals deal with Ukraine. So that basically de facto means that, yes, we're going to give Ukraine enough of the security guarantees that they need to feel comfortable, right, coming to a peace agreement with Russia because of the fact that us being there, getting minerals, we have an economic interest in the country means that, yes, we also have to protect our economic investment, right? So I'm just saying that when all of these deals are worked out, right, plus the fact that President Trump has executed on illegal immigration, if Democrats try to make the midterms about impeaching the president, if they try to make the midterms about impeaching President Trump, they're going to get blown out. They're going to get blown out. Because when Trump is on the ballot, Trump always performs well. He performs better than a lot of Republicans. He performs better. So this is why I've been saying, hey, Democrats, if you want to try to launch this witch hunt against President Trump, if you want to try to put him on the ballot, if you are trying to make voters decide whether or not they want to have the president impeached and removed from office, even though, I mean, realistically, even in a best case scenario for the Democrats in the midterms, they're not going to have enough support to impeach the president. But the voters are too stupid to know that, and Democrats will definitely run on trying to remove President Trump from office, and they will try to use that to rally their base because they don't have anything else. Again, the biggest problem with that strategy is that, again, if the economy is in a much better place, if we generally have peace on the world stage, if nothing super crazy happens, right? Yeah, that's going to be a really, really, really bad move because you're going to motivate people to come out and to vote for President Trump to keep him in office, right? Again, you're basically going to make it like a presidential election, like a general election. And that's the last thing the Democrats want. That is the last thing they should want. So, again, I just think that things are not lining up well for the Democrat Party. They still are not polling better than President Trump or performing better than President Trump in the polls, despite the 24/7 Trump derangement from the media and from their party. And the problem is that they refuse to work with the president. There are just some things that make sense for the Democrat Party to work with the president on, right? And I'm going to expand on this point in another video, okay? Because I want to talk about Hakeem Jeffries and something that he said about banning stock trading. And I think it really kind of drives home my point about how the Democrat Party doesn't stand for anything. But I got to make a whole video on that, right? Just for this video, yeah, I mean, part of the reason why is because they are just an opposition party at this point. They don't have any solutions. They don't have any solutions. That's why nobody trusts them on the economy. Nobody trusts them on immigration. People can feel uncomfortable with what's happening when it comes to deporting the illegals, which is totally necessary, what we have to do, okay? But nobody trusts the Democrats because we saw that they just allow open borders, right? People would much rather have what is happening right now under President Trump than wide open borders, which is what happened under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, okay? Under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, we had massive inflation. Massive inflation. Under President Trump, we don't have that, right? Despite the narrative from the media, as of right now, we're not seeing the massive inflation. In fact, we're seeing inflation continue to cool, right? Which is not a narrative that you're seeing from a vast majority of the mainstream liberal media outlets, right? There's more fear-mongering than actual facts, right, and real data on those networks, because again, the facts and the real data don't match the narrative that they want to put out there. Again, especially when it comes to inflation. So again, you know, I'm just saying, people are smart. People understand that right now, yes, things are volatile, right? But it's gonna get better, right? And people have to wait and see before we really understand exactly what we're getting with the Trump administration. But we do know on some core issues like immigration that we got exactly what we voted for, which is good enough for me as of right now, just, you know, 2 to 3 months into the administration. So no, I'm not going to regret my vote and wish that I voted for some socialist lunatic like Kamala Harris, right? No, absolutely not. Not at all. And again, that narrative is being forced. It's being forced in the media, but it doesn't match reality. It doesn't match reality. And the bad news for Democrats is that they don't have anything to offer except more Kamala, more AOC, more Bernie. And that is, I just don't think that's going to work. I don't think them putting the freak show out front is going to work. I don't think so, especially if they're determined to put Trump on the ballot in the midterms. So Trump versus the freak show, right? I just don't think they're gonna win. I don't think that's gonna have a good outcome for them, right? But that seems like that's what they're gonna do. That's what they want to make the midterms about. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.